So hey guys, what's up? Sol here. Today we're going to be adding games to the NES Classic. So these are still floating around. This is probably my favorite of the two, just because I like the Super Nintendo. Like I like the Nintendo just fine. I credit for making me a gamer, but the Super Nintendo I kind of am a little bit more partial to. And this was a great thing. You know, $80, two controllers, really good find. So if you can still find one out there, and I think if you're in the New York area and you can actually get to New York City, to Rockefeller Center, to the Nintendo store, they've had loads of these for months. GameStop, last I looked, had them on their website. They're shipping them on the 13th. So if this is what you really want, not the NES Classic, and this is, in my opinion, a better product than the NES Classic. Just because of the I can't reach, because of the rewind functions and the some of the improvements that they made. So like 4x3 doesn't have like the same shimmer like the NES does. So anyways, let's get into it. So I have my capture card set up here, and I am streaming right now. So if you guys hear like bits or see donation things come up or something, just part of the game. It's I am streaming right now, so that's why that happens. All right, so we're starting up the NES Classic right now. Sorry, Super Nintendo Classic. And as you can see, it's pretty much bone stock, as you would get if you bought one brand new. So Star Fox is still locked, all that stuff. Haven't tampered with it yet. However, if you do have one of these and you're going to mod it and add games to it, the NES Classic's a little weird. And what I mean by that is in the way that it handles a lot of the different, turn the thing down a little bit here, and the way that it decides to handle a lot of the save files and stuff, because it has that rewind feature. That's what's going to screw you. This thing only has 300 megabytes of memory, and if you add a lot of games to it and you start filling up those save slots, that's where you're going to run into problems, and you could actually get this thing to the point where it starts getting pretty corrupt and wonky. So when I tell you in the next part to make sure that you save your dumped kernel, save the dumped kernel, because if you lose it and the thing starts screwing up, you could possibly break your system. So that's something I want to just make sure is very clear out there. All right. So let's go ahead and flash this and get it ready for loading games on. So I'm just going to shut it down real quick. And we're going to shut the Elgato down, and I'm going to even mute the Elgato. I didn't do that the last time, but hopefully you guys heard me fine. All right. Desktop capture. There we go. Right there. All right. So because I'm streaming, this is what you guys are saying, but don't worry about it. This is what you really need to worry about right here. Okay, so this is a program called Hackchi. As you can see, I have a few games set up. First thing you want to make sure it is set up for the SNES Classic, and you can do that by going into Settings, Console Type, and making sure that it is the one for your region. So make sure you set that before anything else. It usually asks you the first time you boot it up, but if you're like me and you have both consoles, you will have to set it manually back and forth when you're doing this for both of them. All right, so before we can load any of these, there's a couple things you can do. First of all, if you want to add games, so you can go here and say add, for instance, right? Right now we're in the NES collection, but say I want to add a Super Nintendo game. I don't know, for instance, like, well, I won't do anything too terrible. Let's say Alien 3, like I did last time. You just added the ROM. If there's any issue with the ROM whatsoever, the program's going to tell you it's not going to run on the SNES Classic software. And so you can go here and press Google. So what I did right here is I'm adding cover art for the system. And so you can see right here, there's cover art. We can add it, double click, and then Hackchi is just going to resize it and stuff for you so it shows up the way that you want to on the NES Classic. I don't really want Alien 3, so I'm going to delete it. And so any games you don't want to load at the moment, you just uncheck it and it's not going to load it into the system. So we have to get the system ready so we can actually add games too. So the first thing we have to do is dump the kernel. Now when you dump the kernel, I can't do it now because it's already been dumped. It's already in there. See, it tells me that. But it's going to run you through and it's going to say hold down reset and press the power button. And if you don't, there's a little spot where it says install driver. You have to have a driver installed for the USB to recognize during the service mode. So once you do that, it's going to go through, it's going to dump your kernel. You want to make sure that where your kernel has been dumped to. So for me, it's Hackchi 2.3, and right here in dump. So you can see the SNES kernel and the NES kernel. So you want to make sure that this is saved somewhere, because like I said, if anything goes wrong, this is what's going to unbrick your system right here, okay? So what we're going to do is now we're going to flash the custom kernel. So we're going to go here, and we're going to say flash custom kernel. It's that simple. And it's going to say, do you want to flash custom kernel? And you're going to say yes. And it's going to tell you, just like you did when you dumped the kernel, not in the toilet, but you know, the kernel, to hold down the reset button and hit the power button. And it's going to take it a couple seconds, and you might hear the USB thing, you know, like the and then it starts going to the races. All right, so the SNES Classic has been flashed. We need to add some games. That's very simple. Once you add your ROMs that you want here, and you have your games selected that you want to upload, all your art and everything figured out, you also want to make sure, like I said in the last video, that your games are named in a way that they're going in the order that you want. And any games, say for instance, you want to have Super Street Fighter 2 instead of Street Fighter 2 Turbo on here, you can go on here and you can say, you know, where's Street Fighter at? Right there. You can unclick it. It'll take it out of the roster. You can add Super Street Fighter 2, and then that's a way around that. So what we're going to do, excuse me, is we're going to synchronize our games. And just like the other system, it's going to say Hackchi on the device, and it's going to load everything up pretty quickly. And there we go. Okay. And so there you can see we added some games. Now, once again, we have the same problem where the thumbnails on the bottom spill over too much. So one of the things I want to tell you guys that you're going to notice right now is once you start adding more than about 33, 34 games to the NES Classic, you'll notice that your boot time is around 5-6 seconds. Once you start adding more games to it, like the power light's on now, it takes it about a couple more seconds to start up for whatever reason. And this is what I was talking about, when you start adding a lot more games to it, it starts getting a little bit more wonky. So that's something to be aware of. So to get rid of this thumbnail problem down here, we're going to go ahead back into the software here, and we're going to add one of those modules again. So we're going to install an extra module. We're going to remove thumbnails. Now, obviously, if you're using the menu system or the file system, it's not going to be a problem for you. Your extra stuff's just going to be put off on a file somewhere, and you can use the thumbnails, and that's fine. It's just the look that I like for this. You can also add custom filters. I will tell you that this is not working 100% for me. When I would add these commands sometimes, it would cause issues. So it wasn't really worth it for me yet until they get this like worked out a little bit better. But we're going to go ahead and add this, and just like we did before, we're going to go into the service menu, we're hold up the reset, and we're going to hit the power. And it's going to go, and there's the bar, and for everybody on YouTube, it's going to be like that. Okay, so our software is done. It's back up. We're going to hit OK. And if we go back into the Elgato again, come on, there it goes. You can see our thumbnails are gone. We get the games that we want on there, and we are good to go to play. So the thing with the NES Classic, I'm also going to tell you, is not every single game is going to work the way that you want it to. So games like Illusion of Gaia aren't going to work. There's ways that maybe in another video I can show you guys how to add RetroArch actually onto the device. So when you boot it, you'll boot it in this menu, but it'll work through the RetroArch emulator, which will have better support. It's kind of a weird instance, so not everything's going to work better through the RetroArch or SNES 9X emulator, for instance. So some stuff, for instance, like Star Fox, like Super FX chip games, I think work better with the emulator Nintendo's provided here. And that's actually for a lot of the stuff I feel it's that way. But if you get something that's got like a weird chip built in or something like that, it could be a bit of an issue. But as you can see, we have stuff like Super Turrican. I know like Turtles was like a big one that people were upset about. So it's there. And you also have the ability to now hit select and down to go back to the menu. So just like on the SNES Classic. So it's pretty nifty. There's also a way to add frames, which should be easier in future versions of Hackchi. So hang tight, but there is ways to add more frames if you like. And yeah, so it's overall, I like the way the SNES is handled. I'm kind of bummed that you can't just like bog it down with like a bunch of games like the NES Classic, but the rewind feature is ultimately very cool. And at the end of the day, I don't think there's that many people that are really playing that many games at once, so it's not really that big of a deal. It's not a deal breaker for me anyways. So if you guys have any questions, hit them in the comments down below. If you like this video, give a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button and dingle my bell if you'd like. Anyways, I will be back with more videos in the future, probably bitching and moaning about things or talking about other subjects or whatnot. So anyways, see you guys later. Oh, and by the way, thanks. We hit 150 subs today, so I appreciate it. So anyways, see you guys later and have a good one. Bye.